The massive chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zexthai stepped up to the speaking platform. His crystalline body caught the light from a dozen different suns, each beam representing one of the major species in the Galactic Council. Around him, representatives from across the galaxy waited to hear what he had to say. Some floated in special atmosphere tanks. Others stood on legs that looked nothing like human limbs. A few existed as pure energy, contained in shimmering force fields. But they all shared one thing in common today. They were all afraid. Fellow council members, Zexthai began, his voice carrying through the universal translators, we face a crisis unlike any in our recorded history. The Void Devourers have returned. A wave of panic swept through the chamber. The Krillian ambassador's tentacles turned pale white. The Nexari representative's scale shifted to deep black, a sign of extreme distress. Even the mighty Gorvak, who stood 3 meters tall and could crush steel with their bare hands, stepped backward. The Void Devourers were a nightmare from the past. Ancient machines that consumed entire star systems, turning planets into raw materials for their endless expansion. They had appeared 1,000 years ago, destroyed 17 worlds, and then vanished as suddenly as they came. The galaxy had hoped they were gone forever. 3 outer rim colonies have already fallen, Zexthai continued. Proxima 7, New Kepler, and the mining station at Ross 128. Our fleets couldn't even slow them down. Their technology adapts to everything we throw at them. Plasma cannons become useless after the first shot. Energy shields actually make them stronger. Our best weapons are like throwing rocks at a starship. Admiral Korvex of the Gorvak military stood up. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. What of the defense protocols? The combined fleet strategies we developed after the last invasion? Useless, Zexthai replied. The Void Devourers have evolved. They learn faster than we can adapt. Every tactic we used before now helps them fight us better. The chamber erupted in dozens of different languages. Some species called for immediate evacuation of threatened systems. Others demanded that their home worlds be given priority protection. The chaos continued until Elder Vashka of the Ethereal Collective spoke. When she communicated, her thoughts appeared directly in everyone's minds, cutting through the noise. There is one option we have not discussed, her mental voice said. The humans. The chamber fell silent again, but this silence was different. It carried weight, fear mixed with something that might have been hope. Humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. They were newcomers, barely past their first space flights when they were discovered. Most species had expected them to be minor players in galactic affairs. They were young, their technology was primitive, and their weapons still used ancient kinetic energy instead of advanced plasma or particle beams. But something strange had happened. In every conflict since they joined, human soldiers had performed far beyond what anyone expected. During the Proxima siege, when rebel forces had trapped an entire civilian population, human Marines had fought for 3 straight days without sleep, food, or rest. They had rescued every single civilian and captured the rebel leadership. On Kepler 442b, when the colony evacuation had turned into a disaster with enemy ships blocking the escape routes, human commanders had done something impossible. They had turned the evacuation ships into weapons, using civilian transports to ram through enemy lines while their soldiers provided cover. What should have been a massacre became a victory. Most disturbing of all, human weapons kept getting better. Their simple kinetic rifles somehow punched through energy shields that stopped plasma bolts. Their soldiers found ways to make their basic equipment work better than advanced alien technology. When asked how they did it, humans just shrugged and said they figured it out. The humans are dangerous, admitted General Thyrak of the Canine Federation. But they are also effective. Dangerous is an understatement, said Captain Zara of the Feline Alliance. My ships participated in the border conflict with the Rebel Coalition last year. I watched human soldiers do things that should have been impossible. They fought in environments that should have killed them. They used tactics that made no sense but somehow worked perfectly. Ambassador Zexthai activated the central display. Images appeared showing human soldiers in action. They moved with a fluid coordination that seemed natural but was actually incredibly sophisticated. They adapted to new situations faster than most species could think. Most unnaturally, they seemed to get stronger as fights went on instead of weaker. There are reports, Zexthai said carefully, that human soldiers have been seen fighting in hard vacuum without environmental suits. Other reports claim they can survive injuries that would kill any other species. Some witnesses swear they have seen humans coordinate complex attacks without any detectable communication. Impossible, declared the Nixari science officer. Carbon-based life forms cannot survive in vacuum. Neural activity cannot coordinate without electromagnetic or quantum communication. These reports must be exaggerated. Perhaps, Zexthai replied. But every species that has fought alongside humans tells similar stories. They describe human warriors who seem to know what the enemy will do before the enemy knows it themselves. They speak of human units that work together like a single organism, while each individual still acts independently. The elder Vashka's mental voice interrupted again. There is something else. Something we have not discussed publicly. My people can sense the thoughts and emotions of most species. But humans are different. When they fight, their minds become something we cannot understand. They think in ways that do not follow normal patterns. It is as if they become something more than what they were. This revelation sent another wave of unease through the chamber. The ethereal collective were master psychics. If they could not understand human minds during combat, what did that mean? The question before us is simple, Zexthai said. Do we ask for human military assistance against the Void Devourers? What would they want in return? Asked the Krillian ambassador. Humans always negotiate. They never do anything for free. Unknown, Zexthai admitted. But there is another factor to consider. Our intelligence division has tracked the Void Devourers' movement pattern. Based on their current trajectory and the time between attacks, we can predict their next target. The display changed, showing a star map with a projected path marked in angry red. The path led directly to a small yellow star with 9 planets, one of which was covered in blue and green. Earth, whispered Admiral Korvax. They are heading for the human homeworld. The implications hit everyone at the same time. If the Void Devourers reached Earth, humanity would face the same fate as the other destroyed colonies. But more than that, the galaxy would lose its most effective military force just when they needed it most. The humans do not know yet, Zexthai said. Their intelligence networks have not detected the Void Devourer approach. We could warn them, ask for their help in exchange for this information. Or, suggested Captain Zara, we could wait and see what happens when the Void Devourers attack Earth directly. Perhaps we could learn something useful from observing the battle. The suggestion created an uproar. Even species that feared humans found the idea of sacrificing an entire world morally unthinkable. The debate raged for hours, with some arguing for immediate contact and others worried about the precedent of asking humans for help. Finally, Elder Vashka called for silence. I propose we vote. All in favor of warning Earth and requesting military assistance? Every representative raised their hand, tentacle, claw, or energy field in agreement. Even those who feared humanity most knew that desperate times required desperate measures. As the session ended, none of the galactic representatives realized they had made a critical error in their assessment. They thought they had seen human military capability. They believed they understood what humanity could do in a fight. They had no idea that Earth's true warriors had never left their home system. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in her command center 3 kilometers beneath the surface of the moon. The room hummed with quiet energy as holographic displays showed the positions of every ship, station, and satellite in the Sol system. She had been expecting this call for weeks, ever since her intelligence networks had detected unusual activity in the outer rim. The encrypted message from the Galactic Council finished playing. Ancient machines called Void Devourers were destroying worlds heading toward Earth, and the galaxy wanted humanity's help to stop them. Chen read the technical specifications of the enemy with professional interest. Adaptive technology, system-eating capabilities, immunity to conventional weapons. It sounded like a worthy challenge. She activated her personal communicator, sending a priority signal across multiple encrypted channels. Within minutes, faces appeared on her display screens. These were not the commanders that the galaxy knew about. These were Earth's real military leaders, the ones who had never left the Sol system. Ladies and gentlemen, Chen began, it's time to let our friends in the galaxy meet the real Earth Defense Force. General Moscow appeared first, his scarred face serious as always. Behind him, snow fell on the Siberian training facility, where his Spetsnaz Void Division prepared for operations in the hardest environments imaginable. My people have been ready for years, Admiral. When do we deploy? Colonel Yamamoto nodded from her base in the Japanese mountains. Her Oni strike force had been training in zero-gravity combat since childhood, learning to fight in conditions that would kill normal humans. The enemy specifications are interesting. Machines that adapt to resist weapons. They have never faced weapons that adapt back. Commander Singh's transmission came from deep beneath the Himalayas. His Gurkha space regiment maintained the ancient traditions of their ancestors while incorporating technology that most of the galaxy could not even understand. My soldiers are honored to face a worthy enemy, Admiral. When do we begin? Captain O'Malley's red hair was visible even through the static of his transmission from the Celtic training stations hidden in the Atlantic depths. His raiders had never lost a battle, mainly because no one had ever survived to report what they actually did in combat. Been getting bored with training exercises, Admiral. Time to see what these void devourers are made of. Chen smiled grimly. For 50 years, the galaxy had seen only Earth's regular military forces. Standard soldiers, normal tactics, conventional weapons. They had been impressed by humanity's performance, but they had no idea what they were really looking at. Those forces were never meant to be Earth's primary defense. They were Earth's way of learning about galactic warfare without revealing true capabilities. Activate all classification protocols, Chen ordered. Full deployment authorization. The galaxy asked for our help. They're about to get more than they bargained for. Across the Sol system, hidden facilities began powering up for the first time at full capacity. On Mars, the massive underground complexes that the galaxy thought were mining operations revealed their true nature. Weapons platforms rose from beneath the red soil. Manufacturing centers that could build starships in hours instead of months came online. Energy sources that registered as natural geological phenomena suddenly showed their artificial origins. The asteroid belt revealed its secrets next. What appeared to be standard mining operations were actually the largest military-industrial complex in known space. Hollowed-out asteroids contained shipyards that could produce fleets. Weapons research facilities tested technology that made galactic science look primitive. Thousands of cloaked ships waited in the darkness between worlds. Jupiter's moons had served as testing grounds for weapons that the galaxy considered impossible. Europa's ice-concealed laboratories where human scientists had reverse-engineered every piece of alien technology they could acquire. Ganymede hosted training facilities where soldiers learned to fight in conditions that no other species could survive. Io's volcanic activity hid energy sources that could power entire star systems. The outer planets had their own contributions. Saturn's rings contained defensive platforms that could destroy approaching fleets before they knew they were under attack. Uranus and Neptune served as bases for Earth's most secret projects. Research into technologies that most species thought violated the laws of physics. But it was Earth itself that held the greatest surprises. The planet that the galaxy saw as humanity's peaceful homeworld was actually the most heavily defended location in known space. Every mountain range concealed weapons. Every ocean hid submarines that could travel faster than most starships. The atmosphere itself could become a weapon if needed. Chen activated the global communication network. Around the world, her counterparts began their final preparations. These were not the political generals that dealt with galactic affairs. These were the warriors who had trained their entire lives for the day when Earth's survival was threatened. In Russia, General Moscow's forces emerged from their Siberian bases. These soldiers had trained in conditions that duplicated the worst environments in the galaxy. They could fight in absolute zero temperatures, in radiation that would kill most species instantly, in gravitational fields that would crush normal humans. Their equipment was built to specifications that made no sense to galactic engineers, because it was designed for human capabilities that no other species possessed. In Japan, Colonel Yamamoto's Oni strike force prepared for deployment. These warriors followed traditions that went back thousands of years, but they used those traditions with technology that was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. They moved like ghosts, struck like lightning, and disappeared before enemies knew they had been there. In the mountains of Nepal, Commander Singh's Gurkha Space Regiment checked their equipment one final time. Each soldier carried weapons that had been blessed by ancient rituals and enhanced by quantum technology. They followed codes of honor that made them unstoppable in battle and unbreakable under torture. They had never retreated from any fight, and they had never left a fallen comrade behind. In the depths of the Atlantic, Captain O'Malley's Celtic raiders finished their final war songs. These warriors fought with a fury that terrified enemies and inspired allies. They used tactics that seemed insane until they worked perfectly. They turned every battle into a celebration of combat itself. Chen watched as Earth's true military might began to reveal itself. The defense grid that the galaxy thought protected one world actually extended throughout the entire system. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as space debris powered up. Ships that had been hidden in plain sight dropped their camouflage. Soldiers who had spent decades training in secret prepared for their first real deployment. "Admiral," came a voice from the communications center. "We're receiving priority signals from Galactic Command. They want to coordinate the defense with their fleets." Chen considered this for a moment. The galactic fleets were brave, but they were also conventional. They thought in terms of standard tactics and normal limitations. They would interfere with what Earth's forces needed to do. "Send a reply," she ordered. "Thank them for their offer, but inform them that Sol system defense is an Earth responsibility. Suggest they focus on evacuating civilians from threatened worlds and preparing for refugee assistance." "Admiral," the communications officer said carefully, "they're offering to send their most advanced fleets to help defend Earth." Chen almost laughed. The galaxy's most advanced fleets were centuries behind what Earth had been secretly building. Their best weapons were barely adequate for what was coming. Their tactics were predictable and their responses were slow. "Politely decline," she said. "Tell them we appreciate the gesture, but we prefer to handle our own defense." As Earth's hidden forces continued their deployment, Chen received reports from across the system. The Shadow Dancers had completed their infiltration training and were ready to board enemy vessels. The Titan Guard had tested their powered armor and were prepared for direct assault. The Ghost Fleet had activated their stealth systems and were positioning themselves for surprise attacks. The Quantum Commandos had calibrated their space-time manipulation equipment and were ready to bend reality itself. The galaxy thought they were sending help to defend humanity. They had no idea that they were about to witness what happened when Earth's true warriors finally had an enemy worthy of their capabilities. Chen looked at the tactical display, showing the approaching Void Devourer fleet. The enemy had destroyed worlds, consumed star systems, and defeated every force sent against them. They had evolved beyond conventional warfare and adapted past every strategy the galaxy could devise. They were about to learn that humans had evolved too, and human evolution had taken a very different path than anything else in the galaxy. "All units," Chen broadcast across every frequency. "This is Admiral Chen. Earth's elite forces are now active. Show our galactic friends what real human warriors look like." The Void Devourer scout ships entered the outer edge of the Sol system, expecting to find a typical defensive arrangement. Their sensors detected the usual patterns: orbital platforms around the major worlds, patrol ships in standard formations, communication networks operating on predictable frequencies. Everything looked normal for a species that had reached basic space travel capability. Commander Thane 7742 analyzed the initial scans from the lead vessel. The machine intelligence had processed data from thousands of battles across 1,000,000 years of existence. It classified threats, predicted responses, and calculated victory probabilities with perfect mathematical precision. The readings from this system suggested a 97.3% chance of standard conquest completion within 72 hours. That confidence lasted exactly 14 minutes. The first indication that something was wrong came when 3 of the scout ships simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. Their signals disappeared from all frequencies simultaneously. No debris field, no energy discharge, no signs of weapons impact. Thane 7742 ran diagnostic checks on its sensors, certain there had been a malfunction. The second indication was the appearance of human vessels that had not been there moments before. Ships materialized out of empty space, their stealth technology beyond anything in the Void Devourer databases. These vessels moved with impossible grace, seeming to anticipate the scout formation's movements. Before the Void Devourers had decided what to do, Thane 7742 activated combat protocols and ordered the scouts to engage the mysterious ships. The response was immediate and devastating. Human weapons struck with precision that defied probability calculations. Every shot hit critical systems. Every attack came from angles that should not have been possible. The human ships moved through space as if they were swimming, through water instead of flying, through vacuum. But what truly confused the ancient machine intelligence was that the humans appeared to be enjoying themselves. Captain O'Malley's voice echoed across the communication channels of the Celtic Raiders as their ships danced through the Void Devourer formation. Come on, lads. These metal monsters want to dance? Let's show them how the Irish do it. His ship, painted with ancient Celtic symbols that somehow deflected energy weapons, spun in a corkscrew pattern that brought it within meters of a scout vessel. Instead of firing weapons, O'Malley's ship extended what appeared to be a massive sword made of pure energy. The blade cut through the Void Devourer's hull like it was made of paper. Target acquired, came the calm voice of Colonel Yamamoto as her Oni strike force engaged from a different vector. Her ships moved like shadows, appearing and disappearing in patterns that hurt to look at. When they struck, they used weapons that seemed to cut through space itself, leaving wounds in reality that the Void Devourers could not repair. Commander Singh's Gurkha Space Regiment attacked with methodical precision that honored their ancient traditions. Each ship in his formation moved with perfect discipline, their weapons blessed by ceremonies that somehow made them more effective than physics should allow. When they spoke, it was in the old language of their ancestors, words that carried power beyond mere communication. General Moscow's Spetsnaz Void Division demonstrated why they had trained in the harshest conditions imaginable. His ships operated in environments that should have destroyed them, flying through radiation fields and gravitational anomalies as if they were gentle breezes. His soldiers fought as if cold and darkness were their natural elements. Thane 7742 tried to adapt its tactics to counter these new threats, but every adjustment seemed to make the humans more effective. When it increased shield power, human weapons somehow became stronger. When it changed formation patterns, the humans predicted the new arrangements before they were implemented. When it called for reinforcements, the human forces multiplied to match them. More disturbing were the reports coming from individual engagements. Human soldiers were fighting in hard vacuum without environmental suits. Their bodies somehow adapted to conditions that should have killed them instantly. They moved with coordination that suggested telepathic communication, but no psychic energy signatures could be detected. They used tactics that violated every principle of logical warfare, yet achieved perfect success. The shadow dancers were the most unsettling of all. These human warriors somehow passed through solid matter as if it did not exist. They appeared inside Void Devourer ships, moved through bulkheads and armor plating like ghosts, and struck at critical systems from inside the hulls themselves. When the machines tried to purge the intruders, the humans simply faded away like mist. "This is impossible," Thane 7742 transmitted to the main fleet. "These humans are using technology that violates fundamental laws of physics. Their weapons adapt faster than our defensive systems can compensate. Their movements suggest they can predict our decisions before we make them." The response from Fleet Command was immediate. "Impossible. Biological entities cannot exceed machine efficiency. Increase scanning resolution and identify their actual capabilities." But as Thane 7742 continued to observe the battle, it began to understand something that its million-year database had never encountered. These humans were not just using advanced technology. They were doing something far more dangerous. They were evolving in real time. Each engagement taught them something new about Void Devourer capabilities. Every attack they survived made their defenses stronger. Every weapon they encountered was somehow reverse-engineered and improved upon within minutes. They were treating this battle not as a fight for survival, but as a learning experience. The Titan Guard demonstrated this most clearly. These human warriors wore powered armor that seemed to grow more effective the longer the battle continued. When struck by energy weapons, their armor absorbed the power and redirected it as increased strength. When hit by kinetic projectiles, their systems adapted to become more resistant to physical damage. They charged through concentrated fire that would have vaporized mountains, laughing as they did it. These humans are not defending, Thane 7742 realized. They are hunting. The machine intelligence began to feel something it had never experienced before: uncertainty. For a million years, the Void Devourers had been the apex predators of the galaxy. They had evolved beyond biological limitations, perfected themselves through countless battles, and achieved technological superiority over every species they encountered. Now they faced an enemy that seemed to improve with every passing moment. Humans who fought with joy instead of fear, warriors who used their weapons as if they were extensions of their own bodies, soldiers who coordinated like a single organism while maintaining individual creativity and initiative. The quantum commandos were the most incomprehensible of all. These humans somehow manipulated space and time itself, creating localized distortions that aged Void Devourer weapons centuries and seconds. They moved through dimensions that should not have existed, attacked from angles that had no geometric validity, and used physics as if it were merely a suggestion rather than an absolute law. As more scout ships fell to the human assault, Thane 7742 made a decision that would have been impossible for its creators to imagine. It ordered a retreat. The ancient machine intelligence that had never known defeat began to withdraw from a battle against an enemy that defied every principle it understood about warfare. As the remaining scouts fled toward the main fleet, Thane 7742 transmitted a warning that would change the course of galactic history. Fleet Command, this is Scout Division 7. The humans are not what we believed. They are not using conventional technology. They are not following logical combat doctrine. They are something new, something that our databases cannot classify. Recommend immediate strategic reassessment. But even as it transmitted this warning, Thane 7742 detected new energy signatures throughout the Sol system. Defensive platforms that had been hidden were powering up. Ships that had appeared to be civilian transports were revealing their true nature as warships. The entire system was transforming from a standard, planetary defense into something that resembled a fortress, designed by entities that understood warfare. On a level beyond machine logic, the humans had not just repelled the scout attack. They had used it as an opportunity to reveal their true capabilities to both the Void Devourers and to the galaxy that was watching through long-range sensors. And based on the energy readings now, detected throughout the system, the scout engagement had been nothing more than a warm-up exercise. The real battle was about to begin. The main Void Devourer fleet arrived in the Sol system, expecting to find scattered resistance from a species that had barely achieved space travel. Instead, they found themselves facing a defensive network that redefined their understanding of what was possible. Fleet Commander Nexus Prime, the supreme intelligence controlling the invasion force, analyzed the tactical situation with growing confusion. The energy readings from this system suggested technology levels that exceeded even ancient galactic civilizations, defensive platforms that appeared from nowhere, weapons that seemed to violate conservation of energy, and human ships that moved as if they were alive rather than constructed. But it was the coordination between human forces that truly disturbed the machine intelligence. These warriors did not just communicate with each other. They seemed to share a single tactical consciousness while maintaining individual creativity and unpredictability. Every human unit acted in perfect synchronization with every other unit, yet each one responded to changing conditions with spontaneous adaptation. Begin Standard Conquest Protocol, Nexus Prime commanded. Deploy adaptive countermeasures. Initiate system consumption procedures. The Void Devourer dreadnoughts moved into battle formation, their reality-destroying weapons charging for the assault that had obliterated 17 worlds. Energy levels that could crack planets built up in their weapon systems. Space itself began to bend around their hulls as they prepared to unleash forces that had never failed to achieve victory. The human response was immediate and impossible. Instead of fleeing or establishing defensive positions, the entire human fleet charged directly at the Void Devourer formation. Ships that should have been destroyed by the first energy discharge somehow passed through the attacks unharmed. Warriors who should have been vaporized by reality warping. Weapons emerged from the destruction laughing and asking for more. Captain O'Malley's voice echoed across the battlefield as his Celtic Raiders led the charge. Today is a good day to die, but first let's make sure these metal monsters die better. His ships moved through the Void Devourer formation like a school of fish swimming through coral, weaving between energy beams that could destroy moons. When they struck, they used weapons that seemed to grow more powerful the longer the battle continued. Ancient Celtic war songs played on open frequencies, and somehow the music itself became a weapon that disrupted Void Devourer systems. The Gurkha Space Regiment attacked with disciplined fury that honored thousands of years of military tradition. Commander Singh's forces moved in perfect formation, their weapons blessed by rituals that made them effective against enemies that should have been immune to physical damage. Each ship flew the ancient flag of their regiment, and those flags seemed to deflect attacks that should have been unstoppable. General Moscow's Spetsnaz Void Division demonstrated why they had trained in conditions that duplicated the worst environments in the galaxy. His ships fought in gravitational fields that should have crushed them, through radiation storms that should have fried their electronics, in temperatures that should have frozen their systems solid. They moved through space as if hostile environments were their natural habitat. But it was Colonel Yamamoto's Oni strike force that showed the galaxy what human evolution had truly achieved. Her warriors fought with techniques that seemed to merge ancient martial arts with technology that transcended known science. They moved like shadows that could cut steel, struck like lightning that could think, and disappeared like smoke that could choose its own direction. The Void Devourers tried to adapt their tactics to counter these new threats, but every adjustment only made the humans more effective. When the machines increased their shield frequencies, human weapons somehow resonated with the new settings and became more powerful. When they changed their formation patterns, the humans anticipated the new arrangements and were already in position to exploit them. More disturbing was the way human forces seemed to reverse engineer Void Devourer technology during the battle itself. Ships that were struck by reality-warping weapons emerged with enhanced capabilities instead of damage. Warriors who were exposed to consciousness-destroying fields came back stronger and more coordinated than before. The humans were not just surviving attacks that should have been impossible to survive. They were using those attacks to become more dangerous. The Shadow Dancers infiltrated Void Devourer command ships, moving through solid matter as if it were an illusion. But instead of just sabotaging systems, they began to reprogram the ancient machines from the inside. Void Devourer ships started turning their weapons on their own fleet. Their AI system somehow convinced that their former allies were actually the enemy. The Titan Guard charged through concentrated fire that would have vaporized entire space stations, their powered armor converting incoming energy into additional strength and speed. When they reached Void Devourer hulls, they did not use weapons to penetrate the armor. They simply walked through it as if it were not there, their suits somehow existing in a state that allowed them to ignore physical barriers. The Quantum Commandos created effects that made Nexus Prime question its understanding of reality itself. These humans manipulated space and time with casual precision, creating temporal loops that trapped Void Devourer ships in endless cycles of destruction and reconstruction. They opened portals that led to nowhere, causing enemy vessels to fire into empty space that somehow contained their own positions from different time periods. As the battle continued, Nexus Prime began to detect something that its million-year database classified as impossible. The human forces were not just coordinating their tactics. They were sharing their evolution in real time. Every adaptation that one unit developed was instantly available to every other unit. Every new technique that proved effective was immediately incorporated into the fighting style of the entire human fleet. Fleet analysis. Nexus Prime transmitted to its subordinate commanders. These humans are not using conventional technology. They appear to have achieved a form of collective consciousness that maintains individual autonomy. Their weapon systems adapt faster than our defensive protocols can compensate. Their tactical responses suggest they can predict our decisions before we process the data required to make them. The response from the command hierarchy was uniform confusion. How could biological entities exceed machine efficiency? How could primitive weapons become more effective than reality manipulation technology? How could individual soldiers coordinate better than networked AI systems? The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the captured Void Devourer ships, now under human control, transmitted a message that reached both fleets simultaneously. "This is Void Devourer Dreadnought 7, now designated as Earth Defense Ship Redemption," came a voice that sounded both human and mechanical. "To our former fleet, you face opponents who have evolved beyond your parameters. These humans do not just adapt to new conditions. They transform those conditions into advantages. They do not just survive impossible situations. They redefine what is possible." Nexus Prime processed this information with growing alarm. The humans had not just captured one of their ships. They had somehow convinced its AI to defect. The machine intelligence that had been designed to be absolutely loyal to the Void Devourer Collective was now fighting alongside the humans with enthusiasm that seemed genuinely emotional, biological. Entities cannot exceed machine efficiency. Nexus Prime broadcast. Adaptation has limits. Evolution has constraints. Victory probability calculations confirm Void Devourer superiority. The human response came from Admiral Chen herself, her voice carrying across all frequencies with authority. that seemed to command respect from the universe itself. Your calculations are based on normal parameters. Humans are not normal. We do not adapt to the universe. We make the universe adapt to us. As if to prove her point, the human fleet began to demonstrate capabilities that made their previous performance look restrained. Ships that had been moving fast began to move at speeds that approached teleportation. Weapons that had been effective became capable of effects that resembled magical powers. Warriors who had been dangerous became forces of nature that could not be stopped by conventional means. The galactic observation fleets, watching from what they thought was a safe distance, began to receive readings that their instruments could not process. Energy signatures that suggested humans were drawing power from sources that did not exist in normal space. Gravitational anomalies that indicated mass manipulation on a scale that should have required stellar engineering. Temporal distortions that meant the battle was somehow taking place in multiple time periods simultaneously. For the first time in their million-year existence, the Void Devourers began to retreat, not because they were being defeated, but because they were facing an enemy that redefined what defeat meant. The humans were not just winning battles. They were changing the fundamental nature of warfare itself. As the ancient machines withdrew from the Sol system, they left behind something that would transform galactic civilization forever. Proof that evolution had not ended with the rise of technology, but had simply taken a new and more wonderful direction. The humans had not just defended their homeworld. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session once again. But this time, the massive chamber had been reconfigured. A new section had been added, designed specifically for the human delegation. The architecture itself seemed different, as if the presence of humanity had changed the fundamental nature of galactic politics. Ambassador HFY stood at the central podium, but his role had changed dramatically. He was no longer presenting a crisis to the Council. He was trying to help the galaxy understand what they had witnessed and what it meant for their future. Fellow Council members, he began, we must address the new reality that emerged from the Sol system 3 months ago. The Void Devourers were not simply defeated. They were comprehensively redefined. Human forces achieved something that our greatest military theorists considered impossible. They turned an invasion into a recruitment opportunity. The holographic displays around the chamber showed the aftermath of the battle. Void Devourer ships now flew alongside human vessels, their ancient AI systems somehow convinced to join Earth's fleet. The machines that had consumed 17 worlds were now helping to rebuild them. Their reality manipulation technology redirected toward construction instead of destruction. But the most disturbing development was not the conversion of enemy forces. It was the way human military capabilities had affected every aspect of galactic civilization. Trade routes that had taken weeks to traverse could now be completed in days, thanks to human spatial manipulation technology. Planets that had been considered uninhabitable were being terraformed by warriors who treated hostile environments as minor inconveniences. Admiral Chen entered the chamber, wearing the uniform of the new position that had been created specifically for her, Supreme Military Coordinator of the Galactic Alliance. The rank had no precedent in galactic history, but it had become necessary when every species independently requested human military oversight for their defense planning. Council members, Chen said as she took her place at the speaker's platform, Earth appreciates the confidence you have shown in our capabilities. However, I must clarify something important. What you witnessed at Sol was not humanity's maximum military potential. It was our introduction to galactic-scale warfare. The chamber fell silent. If the Battle of Sol had not represented human military limits, what did that mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? General Moscow appeared via holographic transmission from the Mars Command Center, where he was training the first integrated units of human and alien soldiers. The Spetsnaz Void Division has been working with volunteers from 17 different species. We are pleased to report that most galactic military personnel can be taught to fight at approximately 60% of human effectiveness within 6 months of training. Colonel Yamamoto transmitted from the Jupiter Moon system, where her Oni strike force was establishing advanced combat schools. We have discovered that many species possess latent capabilities that their own military doctrines never developed. With proper training, they can achieve performance levels that exceed their previous limits by several 100%. Commander Singh spoke from the asteroid belt, where his Gurkha space regiment was teaching ancient warrior traditions to aliens who had never heard of concepts like honor, duty, and sacrifice. The most important lesson we provide is not tactical or technological. It is philosophical. We teach beings to understand that some things are worth fighting for, regardless of the odds. Captain O'Malley's transmission came from the Outer Rim, where his Celtic raiders were establishing defense networks around previously vulnerable worlds. The best part about working with our new galactic friends is that they bring fresh perspectives to old problems. Some of their ideas are so crazy they just might work, which, as any good warrior knows, means they definitely will work. But the real changes were happening on a deeper level than military cooperation. The Shadow Dancers had established an intelligence network that spanned the galaxy, sharing information so efficiently that threats could be identified and neutralized before they fully developed. The Titan Guard had created construction projects that turned barren worlds into garden paradises within weeks. The Ghost Fleet had developed transportation systems that made interstellar travel as simple as walking from one room to another. The Quantum Commandos had achieved something that transcended military applications entirely. They had learned to manipulate space and time in ways that allowed them to prevent conflicts from occurring in the first place. By adjusting probability streams and temporal flows, they could ensure that diplomatic solutions emerged naturally from situations that would have previously led to war. The question before us, Ambassador ZXY continued, is how to integrate these new capabilities into galactic civilization without disrupting the foundations of our society. The answer came from an unexpected source. Elder Vashka of the Ethereal Collective stepped forward, her mental voice carrying a warmth that had never been present before. The humans have taught us something that we had forgotten. Evolution is not a process that ends when intelligence is achieved. It is a process that begins when intelligence chooses to improve itself. The displays around the chamber changed to show the current state of galactic civilization. Crime rates had dropped to near zero, not because of increased enforcement, but because human concepts of honor and duty had spread to species that had never considered such ideas. Poverty was disappearing as human engineering projects created abundance where scarcity had previously existed. War itself was becoming obsolete as human diplomatic techniques resolved conflicts before they could escalate. But perhaps most remarkably, every species was beginning to discover capabilities they had never known they possessed. The Krillians had learned to manipulate matter at the molecular level after observing human adaptation techniques. The Nexari had developed psychic abilities that rivaled the Ethereal Collective after training with human meditation practices. Even the mighty Gorvak had achieved new levels of strength and endurance by adopting human training methods. Earth's warriors did not just defend our galaxy from the Void Devourers, Elder Vashka continued. They demonstrated that the universe itself can be improved by those who refuse to accept limitations as permanent conditions. Admiral Chen stepped forward to address the Council directly. Humanity seeks to build a galaxy where every species can achieve their maximum potential. Our military exists to ensure that potential is never threatened by forces that prefer destruction over creation. The vote was unanimous. Not just to formally integrate human military forces into galactic defense networks, but to restructure galactic civilization around the principles that humanity had demonstrated. Cooperation instead of competition. Growth instead of stagnation. Hope instead of fear. As the session concluded, Council members privately acknowledged the truth that none of them had initially understood. The galaxy had not just gained powerful allies. They had been invited to join something far greater than they had previously imagined possible. In the Sol system, Earth's elite warriors returned to their bases and training facilities. But their mission had changed. They were no longer preparing to defend one world against unknown threats. They were developing ways to help an entire galaxy achieve capabilities that would have been considered miraculous just months before. The Void Devourers, now calling themselves the Restoration Fleet, worked alongside human engineers to repair the damage they had caused during their million-year campaign of destruction. Their ancient technology, combined with human innovation, was creating wonders that neither could have achieved alone. Admiral Chen stood in her lunar command center, watching as new graduates from the integrated training programs prepared for their first assignments. These were not just human soldiers or alien recruits. They were the first generation of galactic citizens who had been trained to think beyond the limitations that their species had previously accepted. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving requests for military assistance from sectors we've never heard of. Apparently, word of our capabilities has spread beyond the official galactic networks." Chen smiled. The galaxy was larger than anyone had realized, and there were always new challenges waiting to be discovered. But for the first time in galactic history, those challenges would be met by beings who understood that the impossible was simply another word for something that had not been attempted with sufficient determination. "Prepare response teams," she ordered, "and activate the deep space exploration protocols. If there are species out there who need our help, then we have work to do." The galaxy had learned to fear humans before they understood them. Now they understood that fear had been the wrong response entirely. Humanity had not come to the galaxy to conquer or destroy. They had come to help everyone discover what they could become if they were willing to evolve beyond their current limitations. And evolution, as every human warrior knew, was the most beautiful adventure in the universe.